There are a heap of reasons which stop us actually going out there and investing in property or investing in stocks or starting businesses. I completely understand that if it's your first time buying a property, then there's going to be a whole heap of challenges that you have to overcome. Some of them are real and some of them are unfortunately in our mind. And when they're in our mind, they are stories based on old patterns of behavior, which, can take a little while to work through. But as someone that's had to overcome all of these things personally and has bought over 11 properties for myself with my wife Lisa over the last 10 years, I promise you that working through these challenges and working through these fears is absolutely worth it. And the results in 10 years from today, you won't even be able to believe how many better choices you'll have in your life and where you'll potentially be able to be at. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 10 reasons first-time investors delaying a property. Now, I personally think that number 8, 9, and number 10 are the probably 3 biggest reasons why we don't do stuff. But the first one I wanted to start with is just a straight-out lack of confidence. Now, if this is the first time you're going through buying a property, I completely understand that it's overwhelming, that it's uncomfortable, and that it's stressful. And no matter what you try and do, it's going to feel like that first time round. It's like the first time you hopped in a car and tried to drive. I remember driving down the highway with my mum, not the highway, sorry, but going around a corner with my mum, and I've turned the steering wheel hard, and then I thought that I actually had to turn the steering wheel back. I didn't realize that it just automatically corrected because that's what cars do. And for about the first 4 or 5 times I was in the car, I was trying to turn the car back after going around a corner and back into the straight. And it's kind of like what we do with this as investors. We are constantly trying to overcorrect, but we have actually no idea what we're really doing. So lack of confidence is completely natural. It's 100% something that every single investor their first time around is going to have to deal with, whether it's your first home for yourself with your family or your first investment property for yourself. It's going to feel like that, so just get used to that. Now, the second reason I think a lot of investors don't actually take action or take a lot longer to do something than they should is they feel information overload. And I know the fact that I've got a couple of hundred videos on this YouTube channel, or a bunch of podcasts over there at the Pumped on Property Show podcast, which is on Spotify or Apple, means that there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of different ideas to get your head around, but that shouldn't confuse you. And I've done other videos on this in terms of how you can break down the complex world of property investing into a series of very, very simple steps that you can just work through one step at a time as an investor, from setting a strategy in place and identifying what your short and long-term goals are, to identifying the right market, to identifying the right suburb, to finding the right property, to building a world-class team of advisors. And you can take a look at some of the other videos we've done over there at our channel on that sort of stuff. But it isn't as hard as you think it's going to be, and all of this chaos that you feel in your mind right now is self-inflicted. I know it is complicated when you're listening to 10 different ideas, but your job is to identify a strategy that you feel comfortable with. Stay true to the rules of investing in property. If you're just getting started, just buy houses in quality metro markets as close to the city as you can afford, and understand the timing of the cycle by having a look at RP data and Heron Todd White's monthly updates. It's no more complicated than that, but for some reason so many people get caught in thinking it's a lot more overwhelming than it is. Now, the third thing a lot of investors get caught with is they don't actually have a blueprint for success. And as Tony Robbins says, success 100% leaves clues. So if you don't have a mentor or a coach, or just somebody in your life who you can bounce ideas off that's already exactly where you want to be, then it can be really daunting to get stuck into your first property. So for me personally, I identified people like myself online that I really looked up to or respected, or that had the results already that I was looking to achieve, and I just learned from their experiences rather than trying to reinvent the wheel myself, sorry. And so many of my friends have gone out there and tried to be cowboys and trailblazers and actually reinvent the wheel. And 10 years into our journey, I'm so much further ahead because I found great mentors, I found people online and in books and on podcasts that I could learn from, and then I just applied the combination of that knowledge that they taught me to, as opposed to trying to go out there and do it myself. Now, another reason why a lot of first timers get caught up is they have an average team of advisors. You know, I've personally had so many different advisors. I think I've had 6 or 7 different mortgage brokers, 6 different building and pest inspectors. I've had a bunch of different property managers. I've had 5 or 6 solicitors. I've had a bunch of bank managers. You know, and most of those people were absolutely shit house. Just think about school and how there's a couple of really smart people, a couple of kids that are good at sport, and then there's just a lot of people that are average at stuff. That's life. Like, all of those people from school go and get jobs, and most of them aren't very good or very committed to becoming the absolute best. So it can be really difficult when you're getting advice from average people that aren't exactly where you want to be already. And that's why I think it's important to find a mentor or a coach or someone that you can align yourself with that can actually help you get from A to B safely and securely with a long-term approach, as opposed to a short, let's get rich quick thing and the whole house of cards falls over. So that leads me into the next one, which is the 5th thing, and that is a lot of investors have a fear of failure. Now, whether we want to acknowledge that or not, if you didn't grow up with money, you have certain assumptions around money. Now, for a lot of us, we have a fear of failure and a fear of achieving what it is that we really want to achieve. And we also have people around us who haven't achieved what we want to achieve on top of that. So if you are not financially free right now, there's a reason for that, and that's because you either don't have the knowledge, the skills, or the confidence to go out there and do it, or you're just shit scared of actually making it happen. But what I can tell you is I remember buying my first property and it felt like I was jumping out of an aeroplane into a parachute, skydiving all the way to the ground, but the parachute wasn't going to open. What I realized now looking back is it was like just stepping off onto the gutter onto a quiet street. It was completely sensible because it was the right time to be doing that activity for me in my life. And 10 years on, I'm so grateful I took action when so many people around me weren't at that time. Now, I was buying in the GFC or just after the GFC. It was a time when the media was saying that the whole world was going to fall on its head, that things were never going to get any better. And you know, I was 24 years of age when I was just getting started. Thank God I didn't take into the account, and thank God I went and looked at things outside of the mainstream media. I found people like Fred Harrison and Phil Anderson that haven't just looked at the last 5 years, but have been looking at history in America, Australia and Europe for the last 250 to 350 years, and have found patterns that not too many people know about that you can really start to understand. So the 6th thing I think that catches a lot of first-time investors out and that delays them buying a property and actually taking any action, and I do believe that unless you have this particular thing absolutely locked down, you should not be buying a property, and that is a strategy. A lot of first-time investors don't have a clear strategy. And the 7th thing is they don't have a vision for their future. So let me make this as simple as bloody possible for you as I can, because it is so simple. The vision for your future is you want as many choices in your life that are not governed by fear or the need to do something as you possibly can as soon as you can have those choices. Now, for most of us, it's going to take 15 years. For some people, they can speed it up into 5 or 10. For a lot of other people, they work for 40, 50 years and never even get that security that they were looking for because they never get financially free. But if your vision for your future isn't to replace your current annual salary within 15 years from today, then that should be your immediate vision and goal. And the reason you do that isn't for the money. The reason you do that is so that you have choices to spend more time with your family, to spend more time with your friends, to train more and look after your health better, mind, body, and spirit, to do the things that are meaningful to you, to contribute, to start businesses, to change jobs, to volunteer, to travel. If you just want to get on the beers and buy expensive shit for the rest of your life, then you go and do that. That's cool. But for the rest of us that just want to lead a good life with choices in it, then your vision for your future should be choices, which means having a passive income stream coming in, whether you get out of bed or don't get out of bed that day. Now, The strategy is simple then. If you want to achieve financial freedom in the future, then you just reverse that back to where you are right now and you go, this is where I am, this is where I want to be. What simple steps do I have to take to do this? And if you haven't got a strategy in place, I'd love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session with myself or my brother Simon. Just jump over to www.pumpedonproperty.com and book in a free strategy session where we'll talk about where you are and where you would like to be and give you some different ideas that you can take with a grain of salt on how you might get there in a reasonable amount of time, but in a secure way without taking on too much risk or too much debt, which I think is absolutely vital at the current moment in time as an investor, as well as all the time as an investor, because you should never be overexposing yourself. You should just be buying quality property in the right areas at the right time. Now, the eighth reason a lot of investors delay buying a property, and this was a huge one for me when I was just getting started at 24, because none of my mates had ever bought a property before. Mum and dad had bought a house to live in. None of my family were property investors, so I had no one to talk to, and I'm sure you're feeling this way as well. It can be very, very, very difficult to actually find meaningful people to talk to that actually have something good to say, that isn't disencouraging or what they heard on a current affair or fucking 60 Minutes the night before, you know, or what their Facebook algorithm that is spewing content straight to them that is based on exactly what they believe already, and that is just reaffirming this warped version of the world that is just one view, not the way that a lot of people that are actually wealthy or financially free think about things. So not having someone to talk to, whether that's a friend, a family member, a mentor or a coach, or just an advisor that you can touch base on that's already where you want to be, can be really, really tricky, and it can be a very lonely journey. I actually originally started Pumped on Property as a blog almost 5.5 years ago now, because I was so lonely. At that time, I think I'd bought 5 or 6 properties. I was 28 years of age, I think, at the time, or maybe even earlier than that, 26 years of age, and I was just bloody lonely. I wanted to start sharing my story, but I could never talk about it with anyone around me because they either felt threatened by it or I felt like I was talking about it because of my ego or something like that. But the reality was I was just interested in property and I wanted someone to talk about that with. So I hope that, you know, you can see me. I'm just chilling out here in my sister's house, Crystal's house, while I'm recording this one today. You know, I hope I can be that person for you that you can have a beer with, that we can, you know, talk. Unfortunately, it's me doing most of the talking, but if you've got ideas for videos you'd like me to record and would like a shout out, I'd love you to put those in the comments section below and I'll do that for you. You know, I want to be the person that you can get different ideas from that are based on experience as opposed to talking shit like so many people in this space do that haven't actually achieved what you want to achieve, which I don't care what you say, you want choices and you want to be able to do what you want to do as soon as you possibly can. Now, like I said, these last two are the most important two. The ninth thing that stops people buying their first property, whether it's their first home or their first investment, is the media. Now, you've got to remember what sells media space or advertising space, and that is either in the property space or the stock market space or the business space, a boom market or a bust market. There is never anything in between, and you've got to remember that these same newspapers, these same television shows, these same, you know, media companies on social media will put someone being fucking stabbed on national television just to sell some space, or have a photo of somebody's house burning down, or some story about some child being raped to sell the same advertising space, because that is all they can do now to get your attention. Now, most people in the media are absolutely broke. They have no idea what they're talking about financially. They are certainly nowhere near financial freedom. They are just doing a job to make a paycheck, to make their rent. And that is such a brutal way of looking at it, but that is the reality. 95% of the people in the media industry are broke and have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And if you're consuming the content just from them, you're going to end up broke and working for so much longer than you have to, because, you know, it is just one vision of the world. Now, if you start looking broader and start looking at updates from RP Data, from Heron Todd White, from Michael Matusik, from Residex, from John Lindemann. You start looking at things like the Barefoot Investor. You start following videos like this on this YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to by just clicking the button below, or checking out our podcast, The Pumped On Property Show. You can start to open your mind up and your life up to ideas that are completely outside of what you know or what you've been taught. And I've had to go through this journey myself. As I said, I've felt every single one of these things. It took me over 9 months to actually pull the trigger on my first investment property because I suffered all of these things. I had lack of confidence. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I felt lonely. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have a great team around me. I certainly didn't have anybody that I could bounce ideas off that actually knew what they were talking about. And what that leads me into is the last thing and the 10th thing, and that is, you know, you can call these things whatever they are, and they are all, you know, things. They might be values, they might be beliefs, they might be habits that you have in your life. They might be dressed as no time. They might be dressed as lack of confidence. But the reality is, and this is brutal, but you need to hear this, the only thing stopping you from buying a property is yourself. And the only thing stopping you buying a property is yourself and the fear that you have around taking that step into the unknown, which is very, very uncomfortable to do as a human being. Because our brain is hardwired to remove ourselves from danger and to take out all of the threats in our direct existence, so that we spend our time with people who are exactly like us, that are earning the same income, that have the same beliefs and the same value system. And this is why social media is so powerful, because we're just constantly being fed stuff that reaffirms how we think. But the reality is why I started investing in property is I was shit scared of ending up like my grandmas who ended on the pension, and I was shit scared of working as hard as my mum and dad have had to work for the last 45 years to get to a point where they're still not financially free in retirement. And I was more scared about having to work and trade all of my life for something that I didn't want to be, and to end up on the pension and to end up broke, than I was to actually take that step off the gutter, which I thought was like jumping out of a plane. So there's always a reason to not buy property, whether it's the media, whether it's yourself, whether it's your education, whether it's your fear. But the reality is you can educate yourself, you can create a great strategy, you can move towards the right direction slowly, you can take different ideas from people like myself and add them into your tool belt. You don't have to go out there and do something on your own. You can outsource it to a company like ours and get a buyer's agent in place who is, you know, having bought over $350 million worth of property now. How much of an advantage do you think I have over you if you're going out and buying your first property? And it's so common for us to save our clients so much money in the first few years after buying the property, because we know what we're doing and we know the rules of the game, and we know how to help you get the right strategy in place to get to where you want to be in a position where you're not taking on too much risk, where you're secure, and where you're not putting yourself or your family at huge amounts of risk or debt to get there. So I hope you've enjoyed this. There's a lot of reasons why I didn't take action. There's a lot of reasons why I'm also in the financial position at 33 that I am now, where I get to do what I love every day, which is this stuff. I wish you all the best. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Please check out some of our other videos as well. And, you know, if it's something you'd like a hand with buying that first home or investment property, please duck over to our website and we continue the conversation over there. Cheers, guys, and good luck with what it is you're trying to do.